Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of That NextGen Planners podcast with me, Amelia Hamilton, your head of community at NextGen Planners, alongside my two fantastic co-hosts in the form of Taylor Beavis.
Hello.
And Clara Metcalf.
Hi.
And we are not alone this week. We are joined by a fabulous guest. If you don't know him already, where have you been? You're going to have a treat in store for you today. It is the one, the only George Kinder. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be back, Amelia, and wonderful to meet Taylor and Clara.
It's amazing to meet you.
Too.
Perfect. So let's, in case people have been living under a rock and don't know who you are, in a short synopsis, could you give a little bit of background about who you are in the context of financial planning?
Well, I think mostly I'm called the father of, or the founder of, the financial life planning movement. And that was the movement that, in a way, really started the whole psychology of money. Behavioral finance, in a way, came out of that. And I was very passionate about spending time in the UK. So I hooked up early on with some of the leaders in the financial planning community over there. And they kept bringing me over to give courses. So there are a lot of registered life planners now in the UK as a consequence. The movement is largely about putting the clients first, really listening to the clients, and realizing that it's not the money that's our client, but the client themselves. And that was new, right? And still we're struggling with it, aren't we? In the industry, there's still a lot of salespeople out there. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this has inspired every single episode that I think we've done in the podcast so far, in looking at what we should be focusing on in financial planning and putting the client at the heart of things and investing in them as people and not just focusing on things from a monetary perspective. And, you know, there's so much work you've done in this space. I guess we should mention the latest thing that you've got happening in your world is that you've written a new book, The 3 Domains of Freedom. Do you want to give a bit of context as to what you explore in that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you asked me about life planning and I gave one frame of it, but there's another frame that I love, and that is, and maybe I love it more than anything else, and that is that for me, at least, as a financial planner, I was interested in seeing how I could bring my clients most directly, most efficiently, really, if we're using economic terms, to their own dreams of freedom, to their own experience of freedom. And that caused a lot of at first it was a series of questions, and I've got, most people, if they know me, they've heard of the 3 questions and everything like that. But the real thing is listening to the client. So this new book, that quality of listening, when we do our training, often in practically every training, we do a little bit of mindfulness work, because the greater the capacity we have to listen in here, and I don't mean listen to all the words, but to experience ourselves in a more profound or deep way. And the more we clear the decks inside ourselves, the better we are as listeners to our clients. So speaking of listening, I don't know if you could hear the wild tree, but we get that throughout the day. So mindfulness has always been part of the training and part of my understanding of freedom. But we train it largely because it helps. We use it in the trainings because it creates great listening. The people who are really good at mindfulness tend to be really good listeners because they don't put their own agenda into the situation as much. And then recently, I know you and I have talked about this, Amelia, but recently I got. It's really approaching retirement. You can see from my white hair, you're kind of wondering probably why I didn't retire a long time ago. I was beginning to, think about it when the banking crisis hit in 2008. And what happened then for me was that I realized, I got I realized so much of that banking crisis came out of the financial services industry. And I saw people really suffering, people going unemployed, people losing their homes. And I thought, gosh, for 30 years, I've been in the industry trying to make it a better place, trying to make it more humane, trying to make it more focused on people as opposed to products. And look at this, and my thought was, I can't leave on this note. And the other thought was kind of this, I don't know what it is, but the thought was, not on my watch. And I got out and I wrote, my next book was on the golden civilization. And I went on a world tour and traveled, really all over the world. I went to more than 15 countries, and lots of poor countries and rich countries and dictatorships and democracies, and trying to figure out using life planning, using the structure of life planning, which is we get this dream of freedom. We help the client identify, what is that dream of freedom? And that's so much fun. That's really just a great joy in a life planner's office. And we get them to paint it, and we live into it with them. And then we go, so what could possibly get in the way? And then we go at it, and they implement financial planning techniques and skills and everything so much better than anybody else, because they've bought in completely. It's about them. Yeah, right? It's totally.
George, could you talk about, you were speaking a moment ago about the financial crisis and sort of our role, or everybody's role in the industry in that. I know in your book you've touched upon kind of what civilization is doing to itself and the fiduciary duty of platforms and advisors. Can you talk around that?
Yes, very much so. And just one more point about the structure of life planning is that it seems to me that we should be applying the structure. The structure of life planning works so well for our clients, and it makes the advisor feel a lot of energy, a lot of vitality, and a lot of joy. And it shifts their focus from, I just want to make the money, I want to land them, and then I've got, I tick the money box, to actually getting greater excitement from seeing the client come alive and feeling like they're owning their life and they're able to do what they really want to do. So my thought was, gosh, why don't we apply the same structure to civilization? So I'm going to come back to your question, Taylor, and why don't we see, first of all, what the vision is that they want, and then apply it. And what I found was everybody everywhere wanted the same thing. There's a lot of riff about how, what has democracy done for us and all that kind of stuff that we get sometimes in the press. But in fact, people everywhere want a voice. And so I thought, well, what if we did that? And then you're talking about fiduciary, and fiduciary is a huge term in America. And I want to learn from you all more what it means to you and for you in your practice. In America, because fiduciary got identified with what is known as the fee-only movement. And it's a movement where you can't sell products. You can't charge commissions in that way. So they're fee only. They can charge by the hour. You can do assets under management. Sometimes they do retainer. And you all use elements of that. But the regulator is kind of tough to get around in the UK. But in any case, this notion of fiduciary, what I realized as I was leading the life planning movement, there's nothing more fiduciary than being a life planner, because what other aspect of financial advice puts the client first, right? So when we're talking about, so my notion in the new book was, let's take this genius of our industry, and I'm not just talking about Adam Owen here, but let's take this genius of our industry, which is fiduciary. It's what we all love about what we do. And what if we just applied that to civilization? We feel like we're in this crazy time. We know we're in this crazy time. What if we just applied fiduciary standards and just simply, and this is on us in a way, What if we knocked on the door of every product company that we're connected with, what you guys call them providers? And I think providers is a little soft term for them. I think of them as product companies. But in any case, what if we knocked on their doors and said, hey, I'm so thrilled to be a fiduciary. And, I'm taking what you do and I'm delivering it to our clients, and our clients love that I'm a fiduciary. Why aren't you a fiduciary? In fact, if you embraced fiduciary, if not only the providers, but all corporations embraced the fiduciary standard and put their community, democracy, the truth, and the planet ahead of their own self-interest, would we have any problems in the world right now?
And so do you find, George, in terms of the kind of the training and the kind of discussions that you have in the US, is it different here in the UK, or do you have are you doing any work about bringing even more of your stuff to the UK? What are your thoughts on that in terms of what we can take from you in the US and apply here in the UK?
Oh, thank you. So first of all, you probably know this. I love being in the UK, and I really do. And there was a time, you're all familiar with my 3 questions, and then the deepest question is, you only had 24 hours left to live. And there was a time about 15 years ago when, out of the blue, into that 3rd question appeared, I couldn't predict it, but appeared suddenly the city of London. And I thought, holy, and a lot of people, kind of play with that and work with it over the years. Well, I really believe in life planning. So when something comes up that's that powerful, man, I execute. So I started coming to London for several months a year from that moment on. And it's meant a huge amount to me. And now the family and I, our most special vacation every year is in Cornwall. So, we've discovered a wonderful place, really out of the country, but along the coastal walks and all that. And I've been thinking about bringing more stuff to the UK. But I should say, first off, we're all human beings. We're all human creatures, and we all really care about our clients. That's the beauty of this industry going all over. I've trained people from 30 different countries, and we all really care about the people we work with, and we want to do well by them. And even if the structure that we're in is more sales oriented, we still want to put the clients first. So the trainings are very similar. But I do hear different language, and I've spent more time in the UK and in the US and was educated in the US. So I feel like I have a lot to learn from you folks, and I enjoy it every time, because you have a different structure and you work in slightly different ways. I want to learn it. I want to know more about it so I can think with you about how to make it, really exceptional. But I have thought, as we've spent more time in Cornwall, and I've written this book, The 3 Domains of Freedom. I've structured in my mind, and there's an election campaign here in America that I'm focusing on right now. And it was one of the things that came out of my 3rd question. I thought, I got to do something for democracy. And if my grandkids heard that I hadn't done anything and something crazy happened in America during this time, I couldn't live with that. So, but I've put together in my mind a new workshop that's like a day-long workshop, could be done easily with consumers. But done probably through life planners, because you guys know life planning. You guys know the 3 questions. If you've done any of our trainings, you know some of the mindfulness stuff as well. And I thought, why not just design something that could be given very easily in a day or less to consumers everywhere, that brings in life planning so they go, wow, that's cool. And then, of course, that helps your book of business as well, but also gives them some depth in terms of mindfulness, and also says to them, I care about the country we're in, the civilization that we have. I'm concerned about it. And just in really simple ways, I think that what we do, the fiduciary thing that we believe in as financial planners, financial life planners, can be applied in civilization. It would make all of us be able to talk to each other again. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So I've designed that in my head, and I'm thinking Cornwall.
Wow, I'll come if it's in Cornwall, George. I've never been, and I live here.
You've not been to Cornwall?
It's on my bucket list.
Lovely part of the world.
Yeah, we need George to give me that excuse to
If
go.
you could bring the American weather as well more, that would be good. If you can move over and you can bring the weather and it's not so rainy, then I think then we'll be grand. I think that would be great.
Oh, Amelia, the only time we go, this is kind of cheating, I know, but the only time we go is in the summer. So
I know it's still 50-50 in summer. Like apparently it's been summer for the last month, but I haven't seen any of it. So it's you get what you're given in England. It's or the UK, I should say. Perfect. I think that's a great place to leave it while we take a short break, and we will be back in just one moment with George. Hello, I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. Just a little note from me about some of the brilliant things we've got coming up at NextGen Planners. First of all, we have Good Stock in September, which is our brilliant sustainability conference. If you want to know more information about that and ticket information, you can find that on our website. We have also recently launched business membership, which is very exciting. This is for forward-thinking firms, and it offers a comprehensive suite of tools, training, resources to propel your business forward. And of course, we have our brilliant community, which is filled with amazing content covering all aspects of financial planning. You can find out more about all of these things at our website, www.nextgenplanners.co.uk.
Welcome back. We are joined today by the amazing George Kinder. So George, I wanted to just touch on something from the previous section, actually. You mentioned mindfulness a lot. Now, for those who haven't been on one of your life planning courses yet, can you explain what this is and how it's actually useful for financial planners?
Yeah. There's so much that can say. I've taught mindfulness for 35 years. And I usually an hour lecture a week for 35 years. And I've also led week-long retreats just in mindfulness. So it's something I've done. Really, the secret is several hours a day for many years. And so it's something I know quite a bit about, and it's complex, and yet it's very simple. All you do, you close your eyes and you try to experience the sensations of breathing. It's that simple. And you go, well, what on earth? Why would you do that? So much, and what's the meaning of it? In my book, The Three Domains of Freedom, the first domain of freedom that I identify, I say each moment is yours. That's a pretty incredible thing, and we kind of know that. We might do a double take and go, what do you mean by that? And then we go, well, yeah, every moment, it's my moment. No one else has it. So we can kind of get it intellectually. Mindfulness, if you Google it, you'll find that it has all these health benefits. It reduces stress. That was one of the early ways that it came to the West. In the early traditions, it created enlightenment, right? It gave you these extraordinary out of body, out of world experiences, and you can practice it for that. It does that too. But mainly what it's sold as today is a stress reduction, improve your health, increase your longevity. There's actually a study that it will improve your A levels. Did I use that? Because you're more focused. There's more focus. And the time when you're taking tests, if you lose your focus, right, you aren't going to test as well. So and we use it for listening. But I want to say something. You become better listeners because you actually become more emotionally intelligent, because if you're able to be here right now, it means you're not distracted. And what do you get distracted by most? I mean, yeah, you get distracted by your thinking structures, but a lot by feelings, by being annoyed or feeling guilty or feeling shame or feeling excited or feeling desirous or whatever. And so you get pulled in all those directions. What mindfulness does is it gives you more choice around those. You still have them. You don't lose your passions. Thank goodness. But you have more choice around them, right? And that's pretty cool. But I'm going to take this into a kind of an amazing area, and I might have spoken this to Amelia last time we talked. I'm not sure, but there's this trick question that I ask large audiences because it's fun to get everybody to raise their hand. And I say, have you ever experienced? I tell them it's a trick question first, but have you ever experienced freedom in the past? Walking the beach, making love, doing something wildly creative, playing with your kids, All right, I want everybody to raise your hands, and everybody does, right? And then I let them know that they all got it wrong. They all got it wrong. We've never experienced freedom in the past. Think about it. The only time ever experienced freedom is in the present moment. So this is what the extraordinary thing is about mindfulness. If you've ever, it's hard to do. It's hard to practice, and you feel like, I was very awkward practicing the piano, so I use that as an example. You feel all thumbs, and you feel all thumbs with mindfulness too. But what mindfulness really is a practice toward the mastery of the present moment. That's an extraordinary thing. The present moment is the only moment we ever experience. Mindfulness is the practice toward the mastery of it, because you're constantly going at it, trying to get better and better at it. So I really took you far afield, Clara. I hope I addressed.
And George, do you mind me asking, what was your, was there a pivotal moment in your career that led you in this direction? What tilted you towards mindfulness, life planning? What was your experience that took you there?
Well, I'm strange, as you've probably gathered already from spending this half hour with me so far. But what was pivotal for me was turning toward financial. So I had kind of an inclination since I was a small child to kind of think deeply or dive interiorly in a way. And so what was strange for me was education. I got a great education, the best America could deliver. And really, really good education. Went to the very best schools. Once I got through what we call eighth grade, once I was, 12, 13 years old, I got incredible education. And every year I felt less free. This is not to say I don't value the education. I do. I wouldn't be communicating with you all. I wouldn't have written books, all of those things without that education. That's really important to navigate the world as we know it. But I felt less free every year. And when I had to make a living, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth or anything like that. I had to go out and make a living like everybody else. And I'd been good at mathematical things, and I'd been good at in school at financial. I minored in economics, so I went into finance. I did tax returns for a living, and then I did financial stuff. And I think what was strange for me for a long time, those two were opposites like this. And I kept up with the mindfulness, with the deeper elements. I kept up with them, but I had to make a living over here. And sometimes that was dominating my life, right? It dominates all of our lives. So what was stunning to me was putting those two together. And maybe that's really what you're asking, or maybe that's what you would ask if you'd gotten there. I think when I started teaching groups, I just intuited that I was interested in using financial planning to bring people to freedom. And that the one tool that I had that not a lot of people were doing back then, it was, woo-woo and, super soft or whatever. And the one tool I had done that I felt was underutilized, that was really good, was mindfulness. So I thought, I'm going to include it in there. And then over time, I realized, no, this is helping advisors in a terrific way, become better connected with their clients.
Fab.
Yeah.
So if you could give 3 really easy tips for somebody to try and use in their practice now without going too deep, what could they maybe trial out with clients over the next few months that you think would, relating to mindfulness?
There's a wonderful thing that really we've developed kind of the language of it over the last 5 or 6 years, called the pause. I just did one, right? So the pause gives space for the clients to fill it. And often we think we have to sell, we have to put our marquee up, we have to show who we are, put the slideshow up. And I think that clients are going to respond to you much more if you give them that space to, in fact, fill it with who they want to be. So I think one of the coolest things we do is not the 3 questions, although that's pretty wonderful, but is how we start the meeting. So the pause is part of it. So you might just start practicing pausing, and you might think, oh, the client's uncomfortable, but really it's mostly you. The client, you're just giving them room to think or room to feel their way through into what's important. You could pause for several minutes, and you can still stay connected with your eyes, with your gestures, with how you move your body. Still stay connected. Looking curious, you can still stay connected. But the pause is really quite wonderful. And then how you start a meeting. So your first meeting with a client, first time you've met them maybe. And what we do is we just simply ask, why are you here? Why have you come? And that can feel awkward or, but if you think about it, if they've been driving, to come to your office, right? Haven't they been, if they're with their spouse, they've been talking about, well, I hope we get to this. I hope we talk about that. Right? They've been thinking about it, or if they're coming alone. And very often there's something that they really hope that you'll connect with them around. Right? And they're a little shy about it. You guys, you talk about the stiff upper lip, right? I mean, or maybe that was our vision of you, but so maybe you're, but the truth is that every society, we've got our red states and our blue states. We've got totally different ways, but everybody really has stuff. Everybody, and they want to be listened to. They want to find somebody who they can talk with. So why are you here? Why have you come? And then open. And if they start saying, well, it's for my, for the taxes and for, and then all that. But no. If you're going to work together for a while and really deliver something remarkable for your life.
It's those levels of thinking, isn't it? Getting somebody out of that fight or flight brain, giving them that pause to kind of get into the kind of space where they can really think, process, and get to that deeper level, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a lot of it is the client will say what they think you want them to say. Surely, I want you want me to say that I need help with my pension or my tax, but actually, like George is saying, it's so much deeper than that.
And that pause, it means that first answer they give you, they then have the opportunity to come out with that second answer that's much deeper, isn't it?
And I also think, the British slip upper lip is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is this tendency for us, particularly as a nation, more so than over in the US, to be slightly guarded and closed. And I don't know you, and why should I have to tell you all these things? So it's creating a space where somebody feels comfortable and that's an okay thing to do, rather than a stranger has just come
How's
to
the
me.
weather?
yeah, why should I tell you how I feel? Why should I tell you why I'm here? I mean, wonderful points, George. I'm aware that we're swiftly running out of time. And so a question I'd really like to ask you is, you've had this very long, impressive career in this space, and here we are today. We've got two young financial planners who, this is the kind of future generations moving through. What excites you about some of the younger people in the profession today, whether in the UK, whether in the US, other countries? Is there a trait in people that you're seeing that you think, that's really exciting? Or is there something that you really feel like younger people in the profession need to be more cognizant of, perhaps?
What a wonderful question. I mean, as you probably know, Amelia, one of the reasons I love working with you all is your youth, your vitality, and there's something refreshing in what I'm seeing. And it's true. That's true everywhere. I feel a lot of it in the UK, and maybe more so in the UK. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. But one of the things as you're asking that, and I'm thinking about it, I think there's a real sense of your own freedom, of wanting to live a life that's kind of unique, spontaneous, not boxed in by the big corporations or by society standards or by your parents. That's incredibly refreshing. And maybe that happens in every generation to some extent, but I'm certainly feeling it a lot right now in the UK.
There's a question I wanted to ask you about, because I don't know if you're familiar with the FIRE movement, financial independence.
Yes.
What would you say in your mind is the big difference between financial independence and financial freedom, and what do we need to be communicating to, the general population about the difference between these two and the pros and cons, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I've come across FIRE in multiple situations and multiple settings, but I've never really just dived in and thought about what's their structure. And so I don't know that I'm the best person to ask that, but I will say that what I know they're different, and they work differently from how we work in the financial life planning or the registered life planning world. And I think what's really special about life planning is that we've set all the money aside to begin with. It's like that first interview. We set it all aside. It's about you. It's about who you want to be and who you want to become. And then we ask the deep questions and everything. So it's about you in a way that is really meaningful for you. And of course, that overlaps FIRE because it calls to that simplification in our lives that everybody really talks about. But I think probably FIRE and Evoke, the life planning process, have paid more attention to it. I think the delivery process of Evoke is extraordinary, and I've never seen it fail. I mean, it just seems to always work. So that would be my take. But I'd love to have a discussion where we were really going at, well, this is how FIRE is structured.
I think that'd be a fascinating conversation for another day.
If you'll come back, George, we'll have you. We'll take a chance on you. We'll have you one more time, maybe, if you're on your best behavior. But for today, I think that is where we're going to have to leave it. We've got so many more questions, but I mean, you're a busy man. We must let you go and do all of your good work. So thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
A lot of fun, guys. A lot of fun. Wonderful to see you. Yeah. In Cornwall.
We'll see you
in Cornwall.
Well, yeah.
Let me do my outro, George. Okay. quick outro from Amelia Hamilton. Thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast with George, we've got plenty more previous episodes that you can listen to on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website, www.nextgenplanners.co.uk, where you can find out more information about our wonderful community over there too. But thank you for listening. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Gen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find all of our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website. Also, there is where you can find even more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help to grow the podcast.